Now that reforging's out of the game, the only thing that affects your stats is your enchants and the gear that you buy. My current stat priority is mastery, then haste, then versatility, then multi-strike, then critical strike. I don't think much is known about stat priority right now. It's a little complicated with all these new stats. I wouldn't really trust Icy Veins or Noxic. Those websites are usually wrong. I've been looking at some of the top rated warlocks. Most of them are running with mastery, some of them versatility, and some of them haste. For now, I'm just running with mastery, and it's working really well for me. For the gear you want, right now there's a main set and an offset. The main set gives a set bonus and the offset has different stats, so you can choose one piece from the offset. So for the set bonus, you want to take the chest as your off piece. It just gives mastery over crit. For the neck, you want the neck of cruelty. For the cloak, you want prowess. For the bracers, you want prowess. For the weapon, I don't think it really matters. One gives crit mastery, the other gives haste multi-strike, so they're pretty close to even. Trinkets depend on your race. Rings, you want prowess and cruelty. Boots, you want cruelty. And belt, you want prowess. For talents, you're going to always want Dark Regeneration. I would say usually Shadow Fury unless your team has multiple stuns. Then I would take Mortal Coil. I'm not really sure about Howl of Terror. It does DR with Fear, obviously, but it is a good instant 6-second peel, but I'm not ever running with it right now. For the next one, you want Dark Bargain if you're running with Grimoire of Sacrifice, and that's usually when you're facing casters. And if you're facing melee teams, you want Soul Link Supremacy. If it's caster and melee, I would usually take Soul Link Supremacy unless they're a dot cleave, like Shadow Cleave. I would take Dark Bargain and Sacrifice. This one depends if there's any melee. I would take Blood Horror, otherwise Unbound Will. 75 I already talked about. I would never take Grimoire of Service. For level 90, always Archimonde's Darkness, and 100, always Soulburn Haunt, because it stacks with regular Haunt. For Glyphs, it's actually going to be exactly the same as last season. Unstable Affliction, Eternal Resolve, and Siphon Life. Some possible replacements are you can take Demonic Circle instead of Siphon Life. It reduces the cooldown on Demonic Circle by 4 seconds. And that's actually better than you would think because you get the 4 set bonus that every time you use your Demonic Circle, you gain 1300 versatility, which is a pretty good offensive and defensive cooldown. Another thing that I was considering was taking Glyph of Soul Swap over Glyph of Unstable Affliction. The reason for this is both of them pretty much prevent you from getting interrupted. And right now, Glyph of Unstable Affliction isn't really doing that good of a job because stats are so low and nobody has that much haste. But here's my thinking. If you have Glyph of Soul Swap, you can take like a pet or something that's behind a pillar, dot it up, refresh the dots so they're at full duration, and then inhale them, and then just wait until your trinket procs. And at that point, hopefully you have 4 soul shards, and you can exhale your dots for free. And then you still have 4 soul shards to swap your dots to all the other players, and then you can use the rest on Soulburn Haunt. And the only thing you have to cast is Haunt. So I haven't really tried that out, but it is worth considering. When you apply a dot for the first time, it has the duration that it says in the tooltip, and this is the base duration. So Unstable Affliction has a 14-second base duration. And the way that every single dot in the game works right now is that if you apply it and then refresh it while it's already applied, it can be increased up to 130% of its base duration. So if I cast Unstable Affliction, 14 seconds. If I cast it again, it'll go up to 130% to 18 seconds. So what this means is you only want to refresh your dots if they're at 30% of their base duration or less. Otherwise, you're just wasting cast time because you're going to be refreshing it and bringing it up to max duration, but you could have waited longer and it would still go up to max duration. There are exact times for this where you want to refresh your dots. For Unstable Affliction, you can refresh it when it's at 4.2 seconds or less. For Agony, you can refresh it when it's at 7.2 seconds or less. And for Corruption, you can refresh it when it's at 5.4 seconds or less. And the way that I'm getting these numbers is just take the base duration and multiply it by 0.3. At that point, it is not a waste of a global to refresh the dot on the target. So one more thing about dots in Draenor that I didn't actually mention in my last video. The way that haste affects your dots, they changed it so that they always have the same exact duration, and haste doesn't affect the duration anymore. So when a dot falls off and it's in between ticks because of haste, it will actually do a half tick when it's about to fall off. So I'll show you, I'll speed up the video until corruption's about to fall off. Okay, so you can see corruption's been ticking for 1,677. When it falls off, it ticks for 992. That's because I'm in between breakpoints, and whatever remaining damage corruption has, it will tick when the dot expires. If I were to refresh corruption before it fell off, it would keep ticking for the 1,677. So I just thought it would be useful for you guys to know how dots work and how haste affects dots. Currently, haste rating doesn't change the tooltip. It doesn't say that the dot does more damage when you gain haste. So I'm not really sure how good haste is right now. You basically have two different ways to open. The first way is if you can free cast, and in that case you will do Unstable Affliction into Agony, into Corruption, into Soulburn Haunt, and then start dotting up other people in the same order: Unstable Affliction, then Agony, then Corruption. And the other way I would open is if you think that they might be attacking you and you might get interrupted. I would start with putting Agony up and then Corruption on as many targets as I can. Maybe Unstable Affliction, try to get a fake cast. But once your trinket procs, I would pop Soulburn, and then I would stun the DPS, and then get Haunt and Unstable Affliction off before they're out of the Shadow Fury. And that will greatly increase your DPS. And remember, right as soon as your trinket procs are close to after it, you're going to want to actually use your Demonic Circle teleport, because it gives you 1300 versatility for 10 seconds. Porting is actually a significant increase to your damage, almost 10%. So basically, after you do your opener, your priority goes like this. First, you want to have your dots up on all targets, regardless of duration. You just want to get them up on people. Second, you're going to want to be refreshing the dots that are about to fall off. Third, you're going to want to keep your Soulburn Haunt buff up. Fourth would be to teleport if you're about to burst. And fifth would be to use all your remaining soul shards, and that's also only if you're bursting. And then finally, last in your priorities is going to be Drain Soul. Basically, just Drain Soul whoever you and your partner decide the kill target is going to be. And also, Fear is always going to be number one in the priority. You always want to be peeling or CCing the healer. It's really situational. I might make a CC guide, but I'm not really going to talk that much about it in this one. So one thing I wanted to talk about was soul shard management. And it's not like I have it down to an exact science or anything, but I would like to offer you guys a few tips about soul shards. One question I get a lot is, do you ever soul burn soul swap? And that puts all your dots on the target at once, but it costs 2 soul shards. And the answer is no. I never ever do that. I haven't even done it once in Arena so far. I don't really think it's worth it. I do, however, use regular old soul swap quite often actually. I usually make sure my dots are at full duration or more, so that I don't waste my soul shard swapping dots that are about to run off. But the biggest thing to swap with this is Unstable Affliction, because if you can swap Unstable Affliction over to all your targets, it only costs 2 soul shards, and you can just instantly apply all the other dots without having to cast more than once. So that's what it's mostly useful for. And I have been looking a little bit into Glyph of Soul Swap. Haven't really tested it out. I haven't even learned it actually, but I will be testing that out in the near future. Otherwise, for soul shard management, I would not try to drop below 2 soul shards when your Haunting Spirits buff is about to run out. So basically, you always want to have this buff. It's really, really important. You do 20% more dot damage. So try not to run out of soul shards when that's about to run out. Unless you're bursting, of course, and you really want to go for the kill. Again, these are all situational. I don't have it down to an exact science. These are just some tips that I have for you. Another thing I might do during burst with soul shards is, if I already have my soul burn haunt buff up, I might haunt multiple targets that are dotted just for some extra spread pressure depending on how the game is going, unless we're going for single target damage. But if they're all rotting, I will haunt multiple targets. For RBGs and 5s, there's a few things that I would do differently. Firstly, for talents, I would always go Shadow Fury, always Bargain, most always Unbound Will, and always Grimoire of Sacrifice. Another thing I would do is probably always go Glyph of Demonic Circle over Glyph of Siphon Life. Your playstyle in 5s and RBGs is probably, first of all, you're going to want to keep your Soul Burn Haunt buff up, and then pretty much you're just going to want Unstable Affliction, Agony, and Corruption every single target that doesn't have dots. And since the dots are so short, that's probably going to keep you busy the entire time, and you're never going to actually be able to dot every single person. You don't ever really want to let Agony fall off because it stacks up to 10, and if it falls off, you lose your stacks. But other than that, it's not a huge deal if a dot falls off of a player. Just try to keep dotting up players that don't have dots, and you will do a lot of damage. And basically I spend my soul shards on keeping Soul Burn Haunt up and Soul Swap in RBGs and 5s.
Today